Hey guys, it's Coach Fro from RocioFlores.com, and today I'm going to talk to you guys about action versus stagnation. So I asked last week, what are some topics that you guys want me to talk about, and somebody posted action versus stagnation, and I did ask them. I wanted to know, is this something like, are you talking about personal action, and when we hit, those kind of plateaus in our personal life, or about on the business end or a coaching end, like when your client or the person that you're prospecting is having trouble taking action or is kind of stuck. So I'm going to go ahead and just do kind of like a middle ground for both. So rather than going to like specifics, because in either case, right, so whether it's you yourself struggling with taking action, or you see yourself in a really like stuck moment in your life, you're like seeing yourself unable to move forward, or you're trying to get your client or your prospect or somebody that you lead to be able to get past that. I'd rather just kind of go over some of the things that you should know, or some of the things to think about in order to help you kind of process that, versus like actual specific steps in those specific scenarios, because that would have to be like a conversation between one person and another, and I'd have to like go into details into what's going on. But so I want to talk about action first, and go over through, kind of like some of the things that have to do with what's required, or what is going on, and how you get someone to take action, or yourself. And then going to what happens when you can't, like what's going on there. So as always, though, I want to make sure I ask you guys to subscribe to my monthly newsletter. I will be posting one this month at the beginning of July, with all the posts that I've done in the last couple months, because I wasn't able to post one last month since I was just tired. I didn't really feel like typing. So I will, now that I can type, I will do one. But and then I'll remind you guys that my blog posts are coming out this weekend. They're both about budgeting. So I did a how to do basic budgeting, and then how to budget for your goals. And they're very basic videos, but I will do, I will post both of them, and then I will share some other information with you guys at the end, okay? Also, since this is a live video, I'll be sharing it on YouTube when I'm done. I'll make sure that I post it on there so you can watch it on there for any of you guys who watch it too late, and then it's, or you don't get to watch it right now. So, let's get started with action. So, I think the issue with action really is that we have this idea in our head, right, that we should be able to just do whatever it is that we want to do. So that means that we think that we can, that we should just be able to have enough willpower to just take action. And when we don't, there's, we find ourselves kind of in this, like, what's going on? Like, why can't I do this, right? Same goes with if we have clients, or we have, we're working with a prospect, like, they should just take action. Like, they should just do it. Like, and it's really easy, especially when we're on the other end, right? To just kind of like judge the person and be like, okay, they should just do it. Like, you should just do this, right? And when we're there ourselves, it's different, because you're just like, whoa, why can't I do this, right? So we tend to be a little softer, a little kinder to ourselves when it's us having the issue versus when it's somebody else having it. So I want you to think of it from your end. And so I want to talk about something called the motivation myth. So the willpower myth. We have this idea that we need to seek motivation in order to take action. And so a lot of us have been looking like how to get motivated, how to find motivation. What motivation is like this concept of like, it's going to move us, right? Like, we're going to start moving, and we're going to start taking action if we just find this thing that's going to do it for us. And then willpower. We have this idea that like, we should just have the will to do things, that we should just be able to do them, right? And so if you don't do it, or you're not capable, then you just don't have willpower, right? And so both of those thoughts, I want to go ahead and just say that they're very shame-driven. So they're driven by this concept that if you're not doing it, you're just not good enough, right? Like, you're either choosing to not be good enough, or you're just not good enough, right? So what happens when you don't feel good enough? You don't do anything, because you feel like crap. You feel like, you can't do it, so might as well not try. And so when you're both on your own self, or if you're driving this idea or this concept onto your clients or to your prospects, well, for one, you're making them feel like shit. So why the hell would they want to do what you want them to do? And also, when you're making yourself feel that way, why would you want to do what, like, it's just, there's so many feelings that then are associated with taking action. And every time we have feelings, we're associating them with actions. We're creating a pattern. And what happens is that pattern just gets strengthened every single time that we let that pattern take place. And then next thing you know, that association is so strong that the slightest thing, the smallest little thing that we have to do will become this like horrible, like you just get a horrible feeling and you can't move and you can't take action, and it becomes such a bigger deal than it is, right? Anybody who's gone through depression or who's gone through other mental health issues that where lack of motivation is a huge part of it, you'll notice that like the smallest things like are necessary, things that you want to do, just become dreadful. They become difficult. Like you just don't want to do it, and you beat yourself up for it, right? And so it becomes this shame cycle where like you're feeling it, and so you're doing it, and so like you'll end up not even being like, let's say you're like, you got a cup of water here, you have to drink it, and you'll be like, I know I have to drink it, and you'll look at it and you'll stare at it, and then you just won't, because you just feel like you can't, right? And so obviously this gets in the way between, you got like the small things of life, I gotta take a shower, I gotta read, I gotta walk, I gotta go do this, like, and then there's like the big things, like I gotta do my job, I gotta do my work, I gotta talk to this person, I gotta do this, and we start to a pattern of avoidance, isolation. So obviously lack of motivation can be a huge issue in our lives, right? So what's stopping us from taking action? Well, a lot of it has to do with those belief systems, right? We believe that we have to seek motivation, like we can only act when we're motivated to act. So the motivation myth is that motivation will come to you and then you will act. I want to just go ahead and dispel that and tell you that you don't get motivated until you act. So I think that's one of the biggest things that I had to myself learn, because I was stuck in that too. I was like, I just don't feel, and here's the thing, you won't feel like it. You have to act in spite of the feeling. You have to break that pattern of feelings. And that means that in order to be able to do the big stuff, you have to do the small stuff, right? So you have to take action. It doesn't matter what it is, just take any action. And that's the biggest one. That means you have to start with anything. Now, before you can do that, what do you need to do, right? And so start with understanding what needs to be done. So whether it's steps or, like, let's say you're writing a paper, right? It's daunting to think that you have to write a full paper to turn in, right? But it's not that daunting if you just think, I have to think of an idea. And it's not that daunting if you think, I just have to write a sentence. And it's not that daunting if you have steps and you're like, if you just need to know what needs to be done, right? And so same goes with personal life, right? If you're at home and you're just, you're like, what do I need to do, right? So you're freaking out. Now, let's say you just take some time and understand what needs to be done, right? So you have to wake up. Good. You have to get out of bed. Good. You have to take a shower. You have to eat. So just understand the things that need to be done, right? Then understand your priorities. So I understand, and there's ways to do this. So if you guys download my my book, Grow Into the Best You, I go into the Eisenhower principle, which is a really good tool to help you kind of understand how to prioritize things in your life. So basically how to do a to-do list that actually helps you do the things that you need to do. That might be a big step for some of you because you're struggling with this. So I just want you to have the concept that you need to understand what priority things have. So obviously not everything has the same priority as everything else. And although in the moment when your mind is freaking out and when you're like, I need to take action, I can't do anything, and I have all these things to do, everything seems equally important, and you will freak out because, picking up that dirty cup of coffee that you left on your desk remember, a lot of it has to do with your feelings, so it'll feel the same as having to email someone back. Now, the importance of those two situations, right, they may be very different. So, yes, you don't want to have a dirty house and you don't want to have dirty dishes and you don't want to be slovenly and you don't want to smell something bad or you don't want to, doing the dishes is necessary, etc., right? And yes, sending an email is important, or if you have to call your boss back or things like that, they have some sort of level of importance. But in reality, the effect of them is different. And the effect of them at this specific moment is different. And so when you're looking at everything equally, it's going to seem very daunting. But when you step back and realize, okay, I have to call my boss back or else I'll get fired, it has a much bigger effect than doing the dishes. That's something that can be done later, right? And so you can start to think, okay, yes, there's a million things to do, but I don't have to do them all right now. They're not all equally important. They're not equally urgent. And so by understanding what kind of stuff needs to get done and what priority they have, then you just start. Start with the smallest thing you can think of. Like whatever is either the most urgent, the smallest, the most possible thing for you to do. And this is where this is the hardest step, because we want to start with the most difficult task. We want to start with something that feels or you believe will make you feel good enough to keep going, right? So here's the thing. It's not, because you're breaking patterns. You're not going to make that feeling last long enough for it to get you to the next step, because it's taken so much energy just to do that one big step. So if you just start small, if you just start small. So like for example, people with depression, getting out of bed is a big deal. Just waking up, getting out of bed for the day and starting your day, you did it. Like that's already a huge step to take. So that should give you a new feeling. Now, knowing that you did it is a huge part of it. So understanding that you took a step, meaning that it's not true anymore that you can't do anything or that you won't do anything or you didn't do anything all day. You did. You took a step. You checked something off the list. You were motivated enough to take action. Now, obviously, for some people who've never dealt with depression or never dealt with those kind of issues, that seems like, really? Like you might judge that, right? Screw them. You judge your own self based on your own life, your own, obviously for some of you, you have much bigger steps to take, much bigger actions to take. And some of you have much smaller, but they're in completely different circles because the priorities and the things that need to be done are different, right? Remember, we're working on patterns and those feelings. So the feeling will be the same. The pattern that you're breaking will be the same. So don't let people judge you on that. But just understand that you have to start with something. So let's say some of you who are like a higher functioning and you're like, how does this relate to me? Okay, so let's say you got like 1 million tasks to do. So if today all you do is just start by opening your email and looking at your emails, right? And understanding what emails you have to return, what emails you don't have to return. Or people who have in sales, making one sale, right? You start with one thing, because what happens is now you're going to create that new pattern. Now when you move on to the next one, right? You're going to get that feeling again, and you're going to strengthen that new pattern in your brain. And then the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. And now what happens is you're building momentum. You're slowly breaking away that negative pattern of thought and emotions that would have kept you from being able to take bigger actions. And you're no longer relying on that feeling of like, oh, I'm so motivated, I can do everything, from taking one big action. Now you're creating a pattern that's stable, and it'll be stable enough for like the rest of your life for you to be able to take small actions, so that when you get to the big action, you did it because you were able to do it, you believe you can do it, not because you were seeking some high off of it. And then when there's a bigger task after that, it won't feel like you drained your body of energy, right? And so little by little, you're able to then take on bigger and bigger tasks. So those of you who are struggling with taking action, you need to, one, understand what actions you're talking about that you're needing to do. Two, prioritize them. So prioritize, are they even something you need to be doing, or like, are you freaking out for nothing, or are you freaking out for a reason? And then start. Just begin. And that means with the smallest thing you can, the most urgent, the whatever's closest to you. If it's turning on your computer, if it's like for me, I got on my life because it's a little bit easier for me to start with this, get it out of the way, and then move on to do the rest of the stuff I have to do for the day. And that, for some of you, making a phone call, responding to an email, cleaning, cooking, taking a shower, getting out of bed, just start and then move forward to the next. Focus on just one of those things at a time. And that will help you build momentum for you to eventually get to a place where every day you're doing a little bit more. Every day you're taking more action. Remember, it doesn't matter how fast or how slow you go, because as long as you're taking action, you're getting somewhere. And nothing is less than something. So if you're doing absolutely nothing because you're so daunted by the concept that you can't do anything, then you won't do anything, right? But if you are doing at least one thing, you're still going at a rate that is more than not going. So just start. Now, on the other end, why does that lack of motivation even happen? Like, why do you find yourself in stagnation? Why do you find yourself unable to move forward, unable to take steps, unable to act, right? So there's actually a lot of theory that goes into this. There's a whole lot of reasons why this could be the case. There's a lot of reasons why your prospects aren't taking action, why your clients aren't taking action. And so there's a lot to it. I don't want to make any of it sound very, how do I say? I don't want anything to sound like prescriptive or like I'm telling you this is the case, right? So I'm just going to give you a few things to think about, because I really think that it's a one-on-one kind of thing. Every single person has a very different reason for why they might be struggling. And so don't ever assume that you know why or what's the case. No matter how frustrated it might make you, especially if their actions are affecting you. Talk to them. Obviously, you want to make sure that you are genuinely concerned about what the reason is. If at any point you find yourself understanding and recognizing that the only reason that you're upset about their lack of motivation, their lack of movement, their lack of decision making, etc., is because of you, or is because of your own feelings and it's affecting you just because of you, then you need to step away from that person and just recognize that the issue isn't them, it's you, right? I notice this a lot with business owners, online prospectors, right? So like online marketing, MLM, all of this. You can be horribly frustrated by the fact that somebody's not taking action. You know, they're not doing what you want them to do. They're not buying from you, or they're not clicking on the link you sent, or they're not doing what you want them to do. Okay, so there's many reasons why that might be the case. But if you don't actually care about what that case is, you're only concerned about the fact that you didn't make a sale, or that you didn't get that new prospect that you were trying to get, or you didn't get your business, you didn't get what you wanted, then don't put that on them, because there's work that you need to do for yourself. Then you have to recognize that there's some issues there that you're dealing that are about you and not them. Only when you truly care about that person and how that person is being affected should you then think about, should you then make yourself take any action towards that. So now, why would somebody be struggling? So there's lots of reasons. I want to start with the most basic one, which is, do you want to take action? When you don't want something, whether you admit it to yourself or you're recognizing it or you understand that you don't want something, you're not going to do it. That's very simple. Obviously, if you don't want something, you're not going to want it, right? But we're not always aware of that. Like, we're not always cognizant of that. So this could be because maybe we believe that we should, right? And that's a cognitive distortion, where we have these belief systems set up where we've been told our whole life, like, you should do this, or this is how things are supposed to be. And so you're kind of acting based on that societal, cultural pressure that tells you that, like, things should be a certain way. And so if you're acting based out of that and not based on what you want in life, right, or what you want to do, you're going to find ways to kind of sabotage that. You're going to find ways to just have negative feelings towards it. You're not going to want to do it. You're going to find something that'll stop you from moving forward. And so you have to take the time to recognize whether that's something that you really want or not, right? Same goes with if you're prospecting somebody, if you're working with a client, you have to kind of try to figure out if, the reason that they're struggling to move forward is because they don't want to move forward. Not everybody agrees, and not everybody should agree on everything in their lives. And so let's say you're working with a coach and you gave them an idea, a coachee, yeah. Hello. You gave them an idea, and now they're not taking action on that idea. First and foremost, the people that you work with don't have to do what you tell them to do. That's different than, like, you're a consultant and they're paying you to, to do something for them or to tell them how to do something specific. That's very different than coaching. And I think a lot of times people think that with coaching that you're basically getting somebody who's going to tell you what to do. That's not how that works. You don't tell somebody what to do. You can maybe give them ideas. You can be like, this could be a good idea for you, or once you've talked about what they might want or not want. But that person is the one that decides. That person is the one that needs to be empowered to make their own decisions. And so if, let's say you guys were brainstorming and different ideas came up, and then they kind of agreed to something, and then you're like, well, now they're not doing it. That could be frustrating because you're like, why aren't they doing that? So you have to be very okay with asking them, like, is this something that you want? If the person doesn't want that, they shouldn't have to do it, and they're not going to, or they're going to do a bad job at it, and then they're going to create more negative feelings about it, more negative associations. So, one, as somebody who's influencing somebody else, you have to be okay with the fact that they may not want what you want, and that's okay, because if you're genuinely interested in that person, and you genuinely care about that person and their well-being, you're going to help them figure out what they want, not push what you want on them. And same goes with yourself. You have to kind of see yourself as like you're coaching yourself and you're loving on yourself, and you have to ask yourself, what do I really want, and am I forcing myself to want something I don't want, right? And so, sorry, I gotta get comfortable here. Same goes with like if the person feels coerced, right? It's such a hard word to say. So, and what I mean by that is a lot of people come from situations where, and on both ends, so like people who come from like literal abusive situations where their parents, their family members, so somebody has either physically, mentally, emotionally, verbally abused them or forced them to act in certain ways. So obviously they don't want that, and so they're not going to take action in those situations. And on the other end is that can happen outside of like abuse situation. It can happen in situations like, if you're trying to get somebody to sign up for something, or you're trying to get somebody to buy your product, there is such a thing as coercion in those settings, which is why people make fun of like car salesmen and sales in general has such a negative. They have such a negative. People see them really negatively because of that. Because a lot of people have been taught not to sell, but to coerce people into buying things. So they may not need that product. They may not want that product. They may not have any interest, but you've made them feel so freaking bad that now they feel like they should, or they feel like they need to agree or to let you think that they will, and then they don't take action. You're going to be all frustrated. Like, what the hell? This guy said he was going to buy this today, and he keeps pushing it off. Well, maybe he doesn't want it. Right? And so you have to be okay with that concept that maybe somebody genuinely doesn't want it. And let me tell you that if you force somebody, they're not going to be a good prospect for you. One, they might return the product. They might trash talk you or the product itself. They may not do well. Like, there's just so many things that can go wrong because they're not right for it. And no matter how much you push, if it's somebody doesn't want something, they don't want it. Now, there is a case to say, well, they don't know that they want it, or they don't know that they need it. Okay, then your job isn't to force people. Your job is to help them understand those different concepts, right? And so it doesn't matter how much you yell at somebody, like, you need this, you want this. You don't push by pushing what they want. You push by you first and foremost, you should already know whether or not the person actually does need it or want it, because you should have spent enough time knowing them and getting to understand them. And so had you gotten to know them and understand them, you shouldn't have to be at that point of pushing, because you would know whether or not the person does or doesn't need it, right? And so this goes for like a product with, you should have played up the features and the benefits separate from the person, separate from trying to sell it to them. I don't know if that makes sense. What I mean is, same goes with dating and with a bunch of other areas of life, right? With religion, with faith. You're getting to know somebody and they tell you they like this, and you talk about, oh, well, I have this other thing that relates to that, then they show interest in it, etc. Versus, you should like this, and then they're like, no, but I don't, but you should. So make sure that you're having an understanding of whether or not the features and benefits of whatever it is that you're pushing actually aligns with what this person is and likes and wants in their life. Next, okay, let's say that it is something they want, or it is something that they should want, etc., right? some of the reasons why people might, like, you want something and yet you just can't move forward with it. So what are some of the reasons? One, I want to go over the concept of like a vision. A lot of us don't see ourselves as capable or as willing or as able of getting that thing that we want. And so it's really important to be able to see beyond this current step, right? So you might want to become a billionaire. I mean, everyone does, right? But not really. Like, you might genuinely believe that it's not possible, that you could never have that work ethic to do it, or that you could never take the steps necessary to do it, or that you could never, that it's not a realistic thing, that it doesn't happen. Like, if you have all these belief systems and you can't envision yourself living in that way, or you can't envision what would happen, if it just doesn't seem realistic to you, it doesn't seem like a possibility, then you're not going to work towards it. You're not going to, the moment that something comes up where it's an opportunity to actually take action towards that thing you want, you'll find yourself stepping backwards because you know that that step leads you into an unknown. So something that will then lead you to your fears, right? And so that's another thing, is if you can't see the vision, let's say, then you're probably stuck within some level of fear of what could happen. Sorry, I'm reading a post on here. Somebody wrote, if you want to succeed, forget about a balanced life. There is no off switch. Success is a beast that consumes all of you. Okay? So let's say that you get to a point and you want to do something. Let's say it's a business, and I'll go with that kind of concept, right? You might have the real opportunity to take action, and then suddenly you're like, no, or you don't do it, right? Now you know you want to do it. You understand that you want the end of it. You understand the vision of it, but then a fear sets in, right? So a lot of people have, fear of success versus fear of failure. There's fear of judgment. There's a lot of different fears that might come up. And those are all things that need to be addressed, especially so as a coach or as a business leader or anything like that, right? If a person's not taking action, it could just be that they're really afraid of the possible outcomes. They're afraid of what could happen if they do take that step forward. And so obviously each individual person has their own individual reasons. They may not be aware of those reasons. You may not be aware of your own reasons. I think that's why it's so important to kind of look at that vision of that you have for what it is that you're doing. Because you might think that, like, it's this concept, like, I want to be a billionaire. But if you have a vision that getting more money is going to cause you to act badly, or you think that you're going to become like Scrooge, or you think that if you do that, people are going to judge you, or this will happen or that will happen, then you have a very negative vision of the possibility of it, right? And so you're not going to want to go towards that because you're hitting a lot of fears on the way there. Or you think that, let's say it happens to you, you're gonna lose all the money, and you're gonna be becoming a drug addict, and you're gonna go into crime. Like, you feel like all these things are gonna happen. You're not gonna take a step forward. So you have to develop a vision that's positive and that you believe is possible, right? Even if it's outlandish. And you have to tackle every fear that comes up, because the thoughts do come up. It's just a lot of the times we're not trying to stop and think about them in a way that, like, we should be stopping them. We just let them come through. And so you have to allow yourself to just put it out there, to just stop and be like, okay, so I'm really genuinely thinking, like, this could happen or that could happen, and how would I figure this out? And allow yourself to kind of purge all those thoughts that are negative. And then you can tackle them, right? So first and foremost, just allow yourself to be okay with having those negative thoughts. I think, especially as a leader, right? Like somebody who's like a coach, or if you're a business leader, like you have a bunch of people under you, or any other kind of situation where you have people under you and you're trying to get them to take action, and then they're like, well, I'm afraid of this, and you shut it down, you lost that person. I could tell you that. If you tell them, well, you shouldn't be afraid. Well, duh. Like, we know that. Like, I've always hated that. Like, I tried to share fear, tried to share something, like I have this negative thought or this and right away they're like, oh, you shouldn't be thinking that. It's like, well, I know that. Like, duh. How? Like, you still have to work through that, right? And so you still have to kind of assess that thought. You have to allow yourself to believe that that thought isn't real, or that thought isn't helpful, because your brain's telling you it is. Your brain's telling you it matters. Your brain's working really hard with your emotions and pumping chemicals to make you feel afraid. And if you as a leader, right, if somebody as a leader shuts that down without validating it first, that person, one, won't trust you again, won't trust to tell you their fears in the future. One, the fear might actually be very valid. And if it's valid, more often than not, that vision that you have for the future, you're going to see the valid option more than the possible awesome action. And so then you're just going to believe it's not possible. So you're not going to do it. So you lose a lot of trust there. You lose a lot of the vision for the future. And you lose confidence in the person loses confidence in themselves, because now they believe that they can't get past negative thoughts. They believe that there's that shame cycle again, where they're like, well, I should be better able to handle negative thoughts, and I should be, but I'm not, so that means I must not be able to. And so as a leader, you should be able to help them talk through those issues and be like, okay, one, is it a realistic fear? Lots of fears are very realistic. Like, if you walk into a room and there's a bunch of snakes on the floor, right? Most people freak out. It's realistic to freak out because it's realistic that there could be a snake that could bite you, that could get you hurt. And so it's realistic to be afraid of that. Now, if somebody says, don't be afraid, you shouldn't be afraid. The person can feel bad about feeling afraid, or they'll be like, screw you, I'm afraid, right? They're going to act on that. Now, if somebody says, I get why you're afraid, but I just want to let you know, actually, all of these snakes have already been treated to make sure that none of them will have any poison, and they are all pretty friendly because I trained them, blah, 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 right? And so then what's the word? I want to say like assuage your feelings, like they calm down your feelings to help you feel differently, because you have to change that feeling, to change that association in order to move forward. Because it's only when you validate, like, yes, what I'm feeling is real, but it's not real for me. Even though it's a possibility, it's not a possibility right now for me, which means I can move past it. Once that person's able to see that they can move past that fear, because while it could be real, doesn't mean that it has to be real, and you can act in spite of that fear, then you can move forward, and then you create a whole new pattern of thoughts and emotions that will let you build up that resiliency to get past those fears again in the next time. So as a leader, you have to be willing to validate the person's feelings, to listen to what that fear is, and to help them get through it. Hello. And so, okay. Now, I want to go over a different reason why somebody might be stuck. And it's the concept of cognitive dissonance. So sometimes, we have a belief system, we have an idea of how something works. And somebody shares a new idea, and we're like, our brain's like I don't get this. There is such a thing as being so confused that you cannot move forward, because your brain will take its time to allow that new idea in, and to allow you to believe and kind of rationalize whether or not that your belief or that belief is true, or if there's a new belief that needs to be true, or if there's a new way to look at things. And that happens a lot when people are moving forward, especially in personal development, in mental health, in business, even in like physical health, because for such a long time we've believed that certain things just are the way they are. Now you got all these people telling you like they don't have to be that way. Like, you can change the way you act, you can change the way you feel, you can change the way you live. And that may be a completely new thought for someone. Completely new thought. And it might take them a bit to be like, is it? Like, I can't, like your brain's confused and they can't get through it. So that's actually very common, and most people will get past that and then be able to move forward. The problem comes when we try to tell people that they're wrong for going through that. It's normal. It happens. And when you as a leader try to shut that down, or try to force that person to not think what they're thinking, again, shame sets in, more negative association sets in, and then that person feels wrong for doing something that's perfectly natural. And then why would they want to now? Now they have reasons to believe that maybe that new thought isn't true, right? It's like with faith, the whole concept of like love. I'm always bothered by that, because like people will be like, oh, you have to be very loving, right? And you have to love people. And then they push things in a very hateful way. And then they're like, well, can't you see I'm loving you? And then you know, like, that person's grappling with this new concept that, like, this whole new world for them could be, you know, could change how they are. They could become more loving people, but then they're seeing that this other person is not loving, and so they're like, that means it's not true. What you're telling me isn't true, you know? It's like you see a hypocrite, and so then you're like, I don't want to be that way. I'd rather just stay where I'm at, because at least I'm not a hypocrite, right? Even though you're in a horrible, you know, you're not in a great situation. So same goes with business, same goes with health. There's a lot of things where if the person needs time to kind of go over these two ideas that they're fighting in their mind and to create a new belief system on it and get past that confusion, and you have to help them through it. And so as somebody going through this personally, like if you're alone, you're going through personal development by yourself, this is why it helps to have a coach. It helps to have somebody who's coaching you through the process, who's going to walk you through the steps, who's going to be able to help you when you're stuck. Because a lot of times when we're stuck on our own, we can stay stuck for a very long time. It doesn't mean you can't get past it. It just means that it's going to take a lot longer than it would have normally. So it helps to have other people who can help you and who are trained to help you get past that. And then as somebody who works and coaches other people, you need to recognize that in other people. You need to help them past that. And so there's many reasons. So like I said, they may not have a vision of what is, you know, what it is that they want or what will happen, and so that may be keeping them stuck. They may have tons of fears or negative beliefs that will keep them stuck. They may be experiencing cognitive dissonance, like confusion about what's going to happen, or they may just not freaking want what you're trying to get them to do. So hopefully this helps you with understanding how to take action and how to get past that feeling of not being motivated, or stagnation, you know, plateaus, etc. So I talked about a lot of stuff here. If you have questions, if you want to go over any of this, or you want to go more in depth into something that you're struggling with, please send me a direct message and let me know that this is the specific topic that we're talking about, so I know what we're talking about, so I'm not confused, and we could talk about it. You can also, if you want to see if coaching is something that helps you, you can go to rocioflores.com/book-online, so book online, and set an appointment, and you can see whether or not this is something that might be helpful for you. So make sure that you guys check out my post this weekend. So again, it's on how to do basic budgeting and then how to budget for your goals. And so I was actually talking to somebody on here. They're called, their page is at Change Your Trajectory, and they offer a service for people to help them with budgeting, specifically budgeting issues. And so like if you're somebody who's struggling with budgeting in general, so let me watch the video, and then if you see that you need more professional specific help, they help people in all areas. So they set up a system that will allow people to get help, whether you can afford only a little bit a month, or like if you need to have more specialized, more expensive services, they have, you know, like a range on there. So I think that's really cool, because a lot of times the people who need help budgeting can't afford it. So make sure that you check them out at Change Your Trajectory. I'll tag them in my post, and then I asked them to leave their information in the comment section of my blog post. So make sure that you go check that out. And then I think that is all. Yeah. So thank you guys so much for getting on here and for watching. If you like this video, make sure that you send it with the little airplane thingy to people. And if you are on YouTube, we'll share it as well. So thank you guys, and you have a wonderful day, okay? Goodbye.